Let's talk a bit about overthinking and how we can stop overthinking if that's something we're struggling with. First of all, it's important to note that overthinking is actually one of the early symptoms of anxiety or depression, and that people who eventually end up with anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues sometimes start off as overthinkers. They're warriors, they are ruminators, they think and think about something. And when we continue to obsess over something over and over again, and we think about it over and over again, we magnify whatever it is we're thinking of. It becomes bigger than what it really is. We make it seem more scary than it really is. And of course, overthinking will stop us from being able to do anything, because when we overthink, it's very difficult to make decisions. We become stuck in the thinking process instead of doing something. Overthinking is also very much problem focused. Most people that overthink worry about something that is either going to happen or has happened. But usually the overthinking does not go into how do I solve this or how do I move away from this. It's usually why did it happen or why is it going to happen. So we have to understand the nature of overthinking, that overthinking is usually fear-based. It, as I mentioned, it can be linked to anxiety or depression. And it's basically your thought process, your mind stuck in a negative thinking pattern. Because what happens with overthinkers and why it becomes worse is because we teach the brain to overthink. And whatever we teach the brain is what the brain does. The brain is neuroplastic, which means that it is moldable. We can change how it works. That is why we talk about using positive thoughts and positive mindsets and positive habits to change how the brain works when we have situations like depression or anxiety and so on. So this neuroplastic nature of the brain means that if we expose the brain to a pattern of behaving or thinking over and over again, it becomes the brain's default. And the brain is so intelligent, what it then does is, because it realizes this person prioritizes overthinking. They like overthinking. The brain doesn't understand why you're doing it. It doesn't know whether it's good or bad. The brain just knows that this is the thing you do all the time. And once the brain has determined that this is something that it needs to be doing often, it will actually make it easier for you to overthink by making those automatic thought patterns very easy for you to access. So when we get into this a position where we have automatic negative thoughts, it's very easy for us to overthink. It means that even the simplest thing, we'll start thinking, oh, should I do that? Oh, I don't know what to do. Oh my God, this is worrying. And it becomes a pattern. And the problem, of course, is that when your brain becomes used to it, then your brain delivers that to you even quicker, which means it's then harder to stop it. So we need to be aware, because as I said, if you don't already have anxiety or depression, because this is one of the symptoms of both of those things, then it could lead to anxiety or depression. One of the main things about dealing with overthinking is challenging your thoughts. Well, even before you challenge, is being aware of your thoughts. What am I thinking? What is this thought? Where did it come from? Remember, a thought is just a thought. It's not anything until you make it something. So you can arrest every thought and ask it questions. Is it true? Is it helpful? Do I need to have this thought? Is it positive? And you can then determine that if you're not happy with the thought, or it is not a thought you want, you can get rid of it by replacing it, by distracting yourself, by engaging in other activities that will take you away from this negative thinking pattern. So the main thing with overthinking is be aware of what you're thinking. Always capture your thoughts. Think about the thoughts that are in your head. Don't allow them to just sit there. Arrest every thought and say, why is this here? What does this mean? Where is this from? And if it's not a pleasant thought, if it's unhelpful, let it go by doing one of the things I mentioned: distracting yourself, engaging in something else, replacing the thoughts. Another thing that you can do to stop overthinking is to understand that you are in control of anything that's going on in your head. You are in control. You can control your thoughts. You can control, and if you control your thoughts, then you can control your emotions, your feelings. So when we have a thought and the thought is worrying, we only really have to ask ourselves, can I do anything about this thought? Can I change this issue that I'm worried about? And if the answer is no, then the only thing we can do is to let these thoughts go. Because overthinking on something that we cannot do anything about is a waste of time and a waste of energy. And it's very draining and it will affect your mental health. So we don't want to be doing that. So learn to have that knowledge that you are in control. You can control what's going on in your head, in your brain, in your mind. That's very important. Finding a distraction when we get into an overthinking pattern can also be helpful. Sometimes we are so used, like I said, the brain is so used to delivering this automatic negative thinking pattern, and we are so used to doing it. It can seem like it's very difficult to break out of it. Distract yourself. Do something that requires you to concentrate, even if it's a little bit. Something like playing a game on your phone, going for a walk, journaling, gratitude practice, exercising. Those things are useful because while you're doing them, you find that you probably will stop thinking about whatever it is you're thinking about, because they require some kind of concentration. So that's something else to bear in mind. And the last thing is, we need to understand that if we want to get rid of these kind of thinking patterns, we have to be ready to do some work on ourselves. And a lot of people that struggle with overthinking have some kind of self-esteem, self-worth, not feeling good about themselves in some way. So the last thing I would say is that start to think about yourself, your self-image. How do I feel about myself? Do I love myself? Am I kind to myself? Do I show myself compassion? Do I allow myself to make mistakes? Do I understand that sometimes I'm not going to get things right? Do I understand that sometimes, I'm not going to want to do certain things, and that's okay? Kindness and compassion to ourselves is so, so important, because many of us struggle with self-love. We struggle with our self-image, and that means that the inner critic, that voice in our head that's always telling us that we're not good enough, is even louder. And we have to learn to turn that voice down. And the only way to turn that voice down is to learn to love ourselves. The more you love yourself, the more confidence you feel about who you are and how you're showing up in the world, the less powerful that inner critic is going to be. I hope that helps.